Hello everybody, it's your favorite West Virginia on Space here, and Super Mario, or the Mario franchise, is a surprisingly fascinating world. Like, for what lies beneath, which is a simple, child-friendly world, is rather dark stuff. And I don't mean any, super conspiracy, looking at random dialogue and putting it together with a comic that nobody, not even the creator, has read, or something like the Mario personalization theory or a creepypasta thing. I just mean stuff that's plain and simple in the games. Now, I'm talking specifically why I consider roughly the mainline games. I'm not talking about the cartoons or the Paper Mario games or anything like that, though realistically this all could count. But I just want to talk about some of the creepy stuff in the Mario franchise that is just out there. Now, granted, some people have talked about this stuff before, but this is all just my take or some of my explanations on it. In just a compact video explaining the creepy world that is Mario. So let's start off with, of course, the core of what I can see one most obvious. King Boo puppeting Bowser's corpse. Now, this comes from Mario and Luigi's Mansion. And it is probably one of the most creepy games of the franchise, which shouldn't come as a surprise. It's a game about fighting ghosts. But it's unmistakable the creepy atmosphere this game has, beyond just the ghosts. And I could do a whole video on my childhood feelings on this game, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about King Boo. Now, the fortune teller in the game very clearly says that Bowser was soundly defeated, which feels like a slightly more child-friendly way of saying axed off, and Bowser has died many times, so this isn't necessarily, or at least died, quote-unquote. However, in this game, it's a whole nother deal, as King Boo, in the final battle, possesses what looks to be Bowser's body, and if you fire bombs back out with Luigi's vacuum cleaner, it causes the head to sever off and King Boo to start flying out. Now, this is already a kind of creepy visual, but the more you think about it, the more creepy it gets. A lot of people make the assumption that it's some kind of mech, some kind of robotic endoskeleton made to look like Bowser. But why would King Boo build that? What's the logical reason he would build a mech suit that to look just like Bowser? And mechs in the Mario universe are usually pretty obvious. Mechs and robots are clunky and quite obviously robotic. If this is, unique, it has to be. It's just, but that doesn't make sense because why would he have such a thing? Why can't King Boo just build this and not make more of them? But it gets even more horrifying. Remember how I specified that Bowser was, in this game, considered to be dead or soundly defeated, which, once again, given how the unfortunately also says King Boo must have revived Bowser, you don't revive someone for being soundly defeated, you resound them for being dead. And that makes it horrifying. Like, a lot of people assume that, he's puppeting Bowser's body, a form of possession, very ghost-like. But think about the visual of this. Now just think about it. This is King Boo possessing Bowser's hollowed-out corpse, what amounts to skin and bone, probably, with some muscle tissue, and Luigi throws a bomb at it, severing the head off multiple times. If we assume that, cartoon videos are implying here, this is probably a mass of decaying flesh wrapped up in a possessed body of a hollowed-out skeleton of what used to be Mario and Luigi's greatest foe. That is unsettling to the max. And it gets even worse. The next part is Bowser is undead. This feels odd, but by all accounts, he kinda is. Bowser is routinely able to come back from near-death situations, even ignoring the, incident with, King Boo. It gets even more horrifying. Now, a lot of times, it's someone giving him a magic boost, which theoretically would work on anyone. But that doesn't stop the unsettling nature of it sometimes. Sometimes he just comes back on his own. Like, you can't properly kill him. Maybe he can die for a while, and the way Movie Man seems to imply he was killed off for mostly good once. But think about that. Think about how in every game, Mario dunks him into a pool of lava or some equivalent. But no, he just comes back for more. This isn't some cartoon nonsense of Mario being like, I gotta kill my bad guy. Mario is actively trying to send this guy straight to the afterlife. And from day one. And sometimes it works, but I point to the DS game. The DS game of New Super Mario Bros. The DS. Literally, World 1, Bowser is dunked into lava and is turned into dry Bowser. And then he comes back and fights you later and all that jazz. But think about that. Bowser can come back as dry Bowser. And how does he do that exactly? I mean, sometimes it's, just like someone reviving him, which presumably can happen to any skeleton. But other times he seems to do it just on his own. Bowser is supposedly a living organism. Having all your flesh melted off would literally kill anything. Unless you weren't alive to begin with. Now, whether Bowser was always this undead abomination, or if perhaps it's only after King Boo, maybe King Boo is still possessing him. And this would go a long way to explain another creepy idea, is the fact is Bowser's children, who sometimes he seems to show a great level of affection for, even if somewhat cruel, and then other times he just treats them as mini-bosses, things that he throws at his enemies. Is it perhaps that Bowser, as we know him, does care for them on some level, but King Boo doesn't? What if Bowser is dead? Bowser never came back to life, at least after whatever killed him in Luigi's Mansion. And it's always been King Boo puppeting his corpse. That the Bowser we've known for some time now is little more than the undead, rotting husk, puppeted by the Ghost King himself, simply trying to forever hunt down Mario for some unexplained trouble. There's also more elements that are creepy. There is the theory, though not terribly well supported, that King Boo is Bowser, just as his ghost, which does have some evidence, but that's theory crafting. I'm not talking really about theory here. I'm trying to stick mostly to what we see in game rather than theory. But that gets even more terrifying. If Bowser can't permanently be killed, whether because he can naturally come back on his own, or he's just a possessed corpse, I can't even say his name right, the wizard's magic, can Mario ever truly win? Like, think about it. The 1-ups and the continues are mostly a game mechanic, not really in-universe. The closest we get to an in-universe 1-up, I'd say, isn't just a game mechanic, is in the Mario and Luigi RPG games, but that seems to be more applied for a thing to save you from near-death. And so that means, does Mario just eventually grow old and die? I mean, probably, but like most of us, but then will Bowser just keep trekking on? Is fighting Bowser merely just a game of delaying his power? Is Bowser doomed to win just because he can't die for good? But yet, everyone else can. More powerful or not, it's a war of attrition. Sooner or later, some of the heroes will die. The next part isn't so much specifically about one moment, though it does tie into it. But rather the sometimes creepy and somber feeling Mario games just have on occasion. The Ghost Mansion levels are always just kind of creepy in a lot of games. Sometimes they're more cartoony, but other times they truly give off a fear that something isn't quite right about these places. And that alone would be kind of creepy, but think about the creepiness of it. That there are just these mansions lying out in anywhere where ghosts just exist and they just float around doing who knows what. These giant, what amount to memorial mansions filled with the dead. Now, granted, in our world, a lot of us do believe in ghosts, myself included, but generally we don't build massive mansions to house the dead, or they end up there like that. Sure, ghost mansions exist, but they're usually only filled like 1 or 2 according to most people, not hundreds. I mean, what happened to put this many ghosts in that location? Even more so, why are there so many ghosts, and why are so many of them hostile? I mean, sure, some of them are a bit more playful, but a lot of them are actively malicious. It's a worrying presence for the state of ghosts and the afterlife in the Mushroom universe. But there's more to it than that. There's also just general weirdness. After all, we all know the Hell Valley Sky Trees incident. And that is a whole thing, but I can't really talk about that because that's just theory, and I'm, trying to stick to actual stuff. But it is creepy, these things just watching you. And they occasionally pop up in at least one other game, and who knows, maybe more. So what are they is a whole other question. But then there's the somber feeling some games just kind of have. It's a strange bit, I admit, but just the weirdness. Like, Galaxy especially had this, was an always persistent, somber tone. Like, I couldn't quite explain it. Like, Galaxy's a fun game. It's a lot of fun, but I can't help but never shake off the somber feeling the game always had. Like, there was just something always, not off, but just sad about the whole events. In a way that I don't think any other game really has to me. I don't know if I can describe it in words, but it's just something fascinating. But that leads into the final point. The death of the Mario universe. Now, I know that's a complete, jump from, personal body horror or somber feeling to the death of the entire universe, but that's a thing that happened on screen. I know that sounds weird, but just hear me out for a second. At the end of the Galaxy, since Bowser's Galaxy Star thing going supernova, which, by the way, Bowser took point blank and died as it burned into a black hole. Total Chad move. But then the universe is being destroyed by a black hole, and all the Lumas sacrifice themselves, pretty much straight up dying, to save the universe. Although they don't save it. As Rosalina says, it's, well, to put it blankly, more of a reset. But not even a perfect one. Differences always add up over time. It's not a perfect reset. And then Mario wakes up in the new universe. But it's not a restored one. It's a new one. And this is where the true horror comes from. It's not even... we have to consider this. It's a new universe. Mario says new galaxies. We get implications that every time something like this occurs, there's always changes, which once again imply new universe rather than just the old one being restored. But what happens to the old beings? Well, they would logically die because they might not get reincarnated like that. It kind of depends how the afterlife or mechanics of that work, but they're quite likely dead just because. And there's even some horrifying implication that I can probably use to prove that. So, at the end of the game, Mario, Princess Peach, and Bowser wake up. When they wake up, it seems to be at least before everyone else, and slightly drowsy, and the way they look as if, the way they look around trying to see what's going on is they remember what just happened. But the people around them don't. They're just partying, hanging out. The universe didn't just collapse in on itself. Almost like they don't remember it happening or don't care for some reason. But yet Mario, Princess Peach, and Bowser clearly do, and Rosalina is still there. She seems to survive these kind of things. So, the only implication being is that Mario, Princess Peach, and Bowser, from this point onwards, are the sole survivors of the original universe. That everyone else just died. That everyone else we know, potentially, at least characters we didn't see in Galaxy, like Princess Daisy, Wario, Waluigi, the Koopa kids that isn't Bowser Jr. has probably just died. And quite possibly ones on the ship like Luigi or Bowser Jr. also died. And the ones we see are just remakes, copies, not the ones they knew. Just different ones that look kind of similar, that act kind of like the originals, but with differences that would obviously add up. That Princess Peach, when she goes back to ruling the kingdom, isn't ruling the subject she used to. That Mario, when he goes home to see Luigi, he's not going to see the Luigi he cared for his whole life, that he was raised with. And when Bowser Jr. goes home, he will not only find a different kingdom that he controls, but different children than the one he raised. That they won't be his kids, but something else. That is the true horror. That's not really a theory, really. It's just what happened in the game. The world was remade right in front of us, and Mario, Princess Peach, Bowser, and Rosalina are the only survivors. The only survivors of a dead universe. Think about the horror of that. Yeah, they live in a place that's almost like the place they knew, but it's not the place they defended for so long. It's a new world that they aren't a part of, really. There's some survivors from a dead world. That is horrifying. There's no other way to describe it. It's horrifying. And that might be the most horrifying thing in the Mario universe. No theory, no headcanon, just what happened right in front of us. But anyway, that's the end of the video. There's probably more horrifying things I could talk about, but a lot of those would cross into theory territory, and I'm trying to stick to things that we see in-game rather than theory crafting. Now, I may come back to this to talk about some creepy theories, but once again, I just want to talk about this for Halloween season. Perhaps the true darkness of the Mario universe, and how it was never some hidden theory or some massive conspiracy, but just what was in front of us the whole time. Anyway, enjoy the Halloween season, and remember, it's me, Will. Yeah? Hey, why don't you hit that sub button? You're gonna become a subscribble. Get to see my content quicker. Wouldn't that be nice? I bet so.